We're the most diverse population, pretty much of any population in the United States. We have every race, religion, ethnicity, creed, gender, sexuality. I mean, you name it, there's a veteran that is one of those, if not more. Stay-at-home parents, single parents, married, divorced, name it, we're there. But the stereotype generally is, some combat veteran that looks like basically me, like about 6'3", white guy, and that's what all veterans look like. One of the things you learn while you're there when you come out is that all the stuff that you think is integral to life isn't life. It's just a compilation of privileges that you never deserved and you've never earned. And what you actually need to exist and to accomplish the mission is very, very minimal. And when you get all of those things back, piece by piece, you become that much more appreciative for it. I served in the United States Marine Corps from April 2007 until June 2011, where I promptly transferred into USC.
I was in the United States Marine Corps, and I'm an Arabic linguist.
That's our first class out of the Army. But basically I can go anywhere, set up anywhere, and provide a whole network, of communications.
I was a combat videographer.
I was a combat signaler.
I was a gunner's mate, bosun's mate.
I might as well do something that I'm interested in. And luckily, I was able to get that job.
A gunner's made to take care of guns, and rifles and pistols and large guns. And a bosun's mate is a person who takes care of basically the ship.
I was in for 5 years, active duty. I'm now doing the reserves, so going on 8 years now.
And I went in the Army at 23 years old, and I did 22 years.
Right at 18.
I had a 5-year stint.
I gave him 6 years of my life. I mean, that's longer than any relationship I've ever had.
I was in for 4 years. My first 3 years in the service were great.
Ever since I was younger, I'd see like Major Payne, war movies, and I grew up skateboarding and surfing and all the extreme sports and stuff. If I get to serve my country in the process, why not? I always thought the military was kind of cool.
My really close friend had gotten back from boot camp and School of Infantry from the Marines, and I realized, I couldn't really fix myself.
Signed up and all that stuff, and about 6 months later, I told my parents.
And I was this golden child before, and now I'm just this freaking bum. I live on my mom's.
Instant confusion. They were not happy. So my parents basically staged an intervention on me. Everyone they knew that was in the military previously, and they did everything they could to talk me out of it.
I didn't have any options, and I basically heard a recruiter in a fast food place one night. They always start recruiting around March. They try to find who's graduating. And he said, "So, what are your plans after high school?"
A little help, push from my mother. Go talk to him. And I finally went and talked to them, and they said everything I needed to hear, and I was like, I wanted to leave that day. Can I go right now?
And I had nothing. And if you grow up in a town where I did, where nothing's going on, the worst thing is to think about working at Walmart.
I have all these people who are dear to me who are trying to convince me out of it, and it's very, very difficult to tell them no and to stick to your guns, but I stuck to it, and I joined, and I went to boot camp, and 3 months later I came out, and they were extremely proud.
To me, the Marine Corps was like a detour for personal growth.
I knew that the change that I needed was drastic and that I couldn't do it for myself. And I knew there was one thing I damn sure couldn't be doing, and that was being a Marine. So I went and signed up, and two and a half weeks later, I got shipped off to boot camp.
And I'm sure that's what's happening with a lot of the young kids today. They join, the Marines go up and they pump them up, and they're going to make a man out of it,
It changes you.
Most people, like the age that I was in the Marine Corps, they're off in college, and that's when they become their own person, find their identity. And for me, I grew up in the Marine Corps, in boot camp and then out in the fleet, and I definitely feel like I learned a lot about myself, about leadership. Yeah, boot camp. That was an interesting time.
You don't have your pictures, you don't have anything. They take it all away. I remember how much it meant just to get a letter from home. That's gold. You get a letter from your family, and it's like, man, it's that couple minutes that you are kind of transformed back to like this feeling of happiness. You're a lot stronger mentally than you ever imagined.
A lot of female veterans have met with, how do I say it, they're not treated the same in a lot of different environments as their male counterparts, even though they may have served doing just the same amount of work, if not more, and that's kind of a travesty.
It's like a control thing, and you're in a dorm setting, so they give you these doors that don't lock. It was really surreal to wake up and have one of the drill sergeants be right next to my bed, stroking my hair and just saying things like, "Oh, Melanie, that's a really pretty name," and "Oh, you have such long, pretty hair," because the whole time I was in the military I had really long hair. It's creepy, because it's like 3 in the morning, and they're doing something, and you know your bunkmate is below you, but you know, I could hear her, but she didn't want to get involved. And what's the worst that they could do to me? And it turns out they could do a lot to me. The fact that I didn't want to, lack of better terms, put out and do what they wanted me to do. They basically pick people and they just play toss-across with them. They have different shifts of different people, 24 hours a day, and they would just do, if you gave them the green light, they would do whatever they wanted, pretty much. And then I thought, I'm not really a God person, but I thought, I will go to church, because that's one of the only places they allow you to go without, they can't forbid you to go to church on Sundays. And it was the only freedom I had. I was like, I'm going to go to church, and someone will tell me. So someone will give me some advice. And I went to church, and I went to the priest that was there, like, I need some help. I'm being sexually harassed, and I can't take it anymore. It's too much. It's every single night. It's been a month. I'm exhausted. I can't do this anymore. And he goes, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Give me all the names of all the people. Well, it turns out that with these, they have these built-in groups of protecting each other. So the priest was the drill sergeant's brother. So then he called them and told them that I was trying to report them for all this stuff. So then before I even got back, he'd already made a phone call, and it just made it like 4 times worse. So where I thought I was going to get some relief, it actually got like 4 times worse. So that's what happens if you report.
Rapes, drugs, suicides, you know. It's because we don't do nothing about it.
I was very relieved when boot camp was over.
Everything you do now, you do on their time. You do what they tell you. I would say they asked, but they told me that I was going to be in a reconnaissance platoon. They'll scope out the area. So you're basically painting a larger picture for that commander who's about to send in these troops. I had a friend, we were doing some swim training, and one of my friends from the platoon actually drowned, and it didn't turn out very well. I mean, he survived, but he's not all there mentally. They considered it a traumatic brain injury. So he was married at the time, and he had a kid on the way, and it was just a bad setup.
I shipped off to Gulf War, which was interesting. Getting there, landing we're in the middle of the desert, nowhere, and the first, hour, 2 hours there, there's mortars coming in, you hear all this, and all that. And Daharan, I was there for the first week, and there was just a lot of mortars and things going on. The little camp we had where we were stationed at Mosul, and it was pretty heavily mortared on a regular basis. I'm going to PTSD therapy.
Last year I went into Vietnam.
Went to Afghanistan, built a supply account from literally nothing, from sand to $120 million worth of stuff. Managed it all.
I've always known that I wanted to go into film and be a storyteller.
Being out in the woods, being outside, getting to flying in a helicopter is tremendous. I mean, it was just amazing. I love flying.
Jumped out of airplanes off and on throughout my whole career for 22 years. Roughly, I had about 65 jumps.
And it's like everything that I loved, because I basically got to play with a lot of really expensive toys. But I didn't have to blow anything up. Well, I didn't have to kill anyone. And I was also airborne, so I jumped out of planes.
At one point I was translating between French military, United States military, had some Arabic in there.
And then my last year, I ran the largest pistol range in the Marine Corps.
I would be doing what they were doing, as well as setting up my camera and moving around to get all these different shots to fully document it and make something for them to help with their training. And then I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan at the time of my life there, like Bangladesh, Philippines, Korea.
I went to Korea.
Hawaii, went to Guam, Oman, Djibouti, Africa, Hong Kong, Thailand. I think that's about it.
We're up and down the coast of Vietnam. My ship was a helicopter ship. We landed Marines in the fire bases. That's what we did.
I was on the ground in Kuwait for a month or two, but it was mostly training.
Every occupation, every side of life has some bullshit you kind of have to deal with.
So I was on ship for 8 months. It was written up for commission in the late 60s, commissioned in the early 70s. It was a giant walking tetanus shot.
Everything wasn't peaches and cream.
And every thing has its own particular brand of bullshit. And the military does as well.
There was 5 showers and 10 toilets for over 200 Marines living in a berthing the size of a small restaurant. I lived in the bottom rack up against the shower, and the shower leaked every day. It's pretty awesome.
It's like any other job, you have your ups and downs, good things, bad things, things you don't like, but it's all different for each person, and then that's any job. Whether it's people or the type of people you have to deal with, whether it's bosses or soldiers under you or whatever.
You work so hard to survive, so when you come out of that situation, you're not stable. That's why we have so much problem with PTSD.
Among veterans and service members, especially when I was leaving in 2009, I know there was a rising number of suicides.
You've got hundreds of thousands of Vietnam veterans that are on right out there in the streets right now that are having medical and physical problems. You see the homeless. 40% of the homeless people you see on the street are Vietnam veterans. That's the men. Vietnam Veterans Against the War. Some of the original sponsors of the Iraqi Vets Against the War. Yeah. We want people to understand this is a memorial to the human cost of war. One Red Cross stands for 10. White Cross is a single person. That number is low. It's about 13 a week. All these pillars is the first 1,000 have died in Iraq.
Fear burgers right here.
Dad, open it.
One of the biggest things, veterans coming back, transitioning into school, and have to go to all these different offices to get everything right. And then even still, the VA, this takes about 6 to 8 weeks to certify them. They get admitted in June, register for classes in July, and then start classes in August. Well, the VA can't certify you until you've already registered for classes, so that's in June, early July, and you start in August, but they don't pay you until 2 or 3 months out. And you paid 2 or 3 months of rent, and then you get your first check for about $2,000 in November 1st. So you're already at a loss financially, plus you're back at school for the first time in 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 years. And on top of that, you're adapting into a new environment. This all happens before the first day of class. So it's a very tumultuous experience before you even add in potential PTSD or mental health for some cases. So it's kind of a perfect storm to get lost in the sauce, as we would call it. Well, the transition to school was the weirdest part. I thought it was going to be easy.
You've been to all these places, you've been through all this intense training. Thinking about going to school in the civilian world as a Marine seemed like a dream vacation. I'm this older Marine now, and people would be looking up to me.
Plus, I've been to Afghanistan, Kuwait, all kinds of weird places. School, how hard is that going to be? A top university and competing against very bright people who have been professional students for the last 20 years of their life. And I have taken a sabbatical for about 6, 7 years. I hadn't had a science class in a decade, and I was like, damn, I'm old.
It helps add some perspective to my writing, that a lot of people might not have. Maybe some worldliness to it. I still have friends, from the Marine Corps that I consider family. So even though they're scattered all over the country, I have kind of family in every little corner of the country at this point because of, being a veteran.
A lot of employers have been scared off thinking that all veterans have PTSD or mental health issues. So it's been a big push recently to get employers to hire veterans and to get around the idea that all of them come back messed up.
I got an interview for a paid internship for the summer. And I know that part of that is because they told me, it was an impressive resume, and a lot of the things on that resume have to do with my Marine Corps experience.
I put in an application to, I think, about every restaurant in between Huntington Beach and Long Beach. I couldn't get a single job.
I am worried about getting a job after graduation, but that's especially tough in my field.
I have retirement pay, I have disability, 80% disability for all my arthritis and joints and bone degenerative disorders in my body. It's hard on a person, on their body. So I'm finding out now. Arthritis, pain, things like that. I attribute a lot of my pain, a lot of that stuff to being airborne. With that and what I've done with flipping houses, I have a couple of properties that rent pretty good.
Being a Trojan and a Marine, former Marine, I think looks good. But, I'm only hoping.
If I run into a problem, I'm not seeing, well, this can't be done. I'm looking at how to make this work. I don't really see things as, game stoppers now.
She's 14. She's a veteran too.
It's not just a job though, it is a whole way of life, living in the military. It sounds like a commercial.
We got in Marine. I'll be all right.